The Strait of Hormuz exploded into chaos when 0445 hours when 44 Iranian warships materialized from the darkness in a coordinated attack formation that Pentagon analysts had nightmares about for 2 decades. 4 frigates blocking the choke point, 40 fast attack craft swarming like hornets, every vessel armed, every crew at battle stations, every commander under orders not to yield. This wasn't a patrol mission. This was Iran betting its entire naval force on one catastrophic gamble: that the United States wouldn't dare respond with overwhelming force in waters 20 miles from Iranian shores. They were wrong. Within 60 seconds, American Aegis systems achieved weapons lock on every single Iranian vessel simultaneously. Fire control radars painted targets with electromagnetic precision. Submarines nobody knew existed rose to firing depth. Fighter jets screamed off carrier decks with enough ordnance to turn the entire Iranian formation into debris fields. The technological avalanche that Tehran's planners had catastrophically underestimated was about to demonstrate the brutal mathematics of 21st century naval warfare, where courage and numbers mean nothing against networked firepower updating 50 times per second. The Revolutionary Guard had just triggered the exact response mechanism the U.S. Navy designed specifically to annihilate swarm tactics, and in the next 12 minutes, professional officers on both sides would fight desperately to prevent politicians from starting a war that would last exactly as long as it takes American missiles to cover 180 kilometers at Mach 3.5. This is what happened when Iran crossed the line the United States had drawn in blood and steel across the Persian Gulf. The Iranian strategy crystallized with brutal clarity. Use the frigates as a visible wall to create political theater, while the fast boats represented the actual threat, swarming from multiple vectors to exploit the carrier group's nightmare scenario. Each Bogomar boat cost maybe $150,000 to build and arm. The USS Abraham Lincoln costs $13 billion. Even if you lose 30 boats to take out one carrier, the strategic mathematics work in Iran's favor. That's the theory. That's what makes swarm tactics so dangerous in confined waters. The Strait of Hormuz is 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, with shipping lanes squeezed into corridors barely 2 miles across. This confrontation was designed to force the United States to either acknowledge Iranian control or respond with force that would trigger international condemnation. The Supreme National Security Council authorized this operation with explicit parameters. Demonstrate that American carrier groups cannot simply transit Iranian-monitored waters without consequence. The order stopped just short of authorizing weapons fire, but in naval confrontations, that line becomes dangerously blurred when dozens of armed vessels converge at high speed. What Iranian planners fundamentally miscalculated was the technological revolution that had transformed American naval warfare. The Aegis combat system wasn't just upgraded radar, it was a complete battlefield network that achieved total information dominance, updated in real time, and distributed simultaneously across every American platform within 200 kilometers. The USS Port Royal and USS Sterett activated their SPY-1D phased array radars and within 0.4 seconds achieved complete targeting lock on all 44 Iranian vessels simultaneously. Not sequential tracking, simultaneous engagement capability. The system calculated firing solutions, updated threat assessments, prioritized targets, and allocated weapons faster than any human commander could process the raw data. The technological gap wasn't incremental, it was generational. Iranian frigates operated with 1980s-era fire control systems that could track maybe 4 targets at once. American Aegis cruisers could engage 30 targets simultaneously with fire-and-forget missiles. Iranian radar operators watched screens showing American ships. American operators watched screens showing Iranian ships, their exact speed, heading, weapon status, electromagnetic emissions, and calculated probability of mission kill for each vessel exceeding 97%. This is where asymmetric warfare theory collides with technological reality. Swarm tactics work when defenders can't track and engage multiple targets simultaneously. They fail catastrophically when every attacker becomes a cataloged target before they even enter weapons range. The Iranians were executing 2008 doctrine against 2024 capabilities, and the mismatch was about to become lethally obvious. The subsurface dimension exposed Iran's strategic blindness even more dramatically. 2 Los Angeles-class attack submarines had positioned themselves days earlier, their passive sonar arrays tracking diesel engine signatures from distances where Iranian ships couldn't even theoretically detect them. Each submarine carried Mark 48 AD-cap torpedoes that could engage surface targets from 30 kilometers away with near-certain kill probability. Iranian commanders planning their surface confrontation had zero awareness that American submarines could eliminate their entire formation before they even knew they were under attack. The aerial component multiplied the mismatch exponentially. 8 FA-18E Super Hornets launched within 4 minutes, each carrying 4 AGM-84 Harpoon anti-ship missiles with 120-kilometer range. These aircraft weren't operating independently. They were nodes in the Aegis network, receiving real-time targeting data from ships, satellites, and E-2D Hawkeye early warning aircraft. Every pilot could see every target simultaneously, with weapons pre-assigned and engagement sequences calculated automatically. Iranian air defenses faced systematic jamming from EA-18G Growlers that degraded radar performance to near uselessness. Iran's F-14 Tomcats and MiG-29 Fulcrums sat on runways unable to launch because their ground-controlled intercept system couldn't achieve the radar picture necessary for effective vectoring. The airspace above the confrontation belonged entirely to the United States. Iran committed 4 frigates and 40 fast boats, representing perhaps 60% of their operational surface fleet. The United States deployed 1 carrier strike group, representing roughly 8% of its available global naval power. Yet the American force could simultaneously engage every Iranian vessel with multiple redundant weapon systems while maintaining defensive reserves. The numerical advantage Iran sought to exploit through swarm tactics had been neutralized before the first boat crossed the defensive perimeter. At 0534 hours, 3 Bogomar boats accelerated to 40 knots, heading directly toward the carrier group, and the confrontation reached its critical decision point. Standard rules of engagement are explicit. Vessels approaching within 500 meters at high speed while ignoring radio warnings exhibit hostile intent, justifying immediate defensive response. The response came with calculated precision. The USS Sterret's Phalanx close-in weapon system fired a 3-second burst of 20mm rounds across the lead boat's bow at 4,500 rounds per minute. 270 rounds of depleted uranium ammunition turned the sea into a boiling cauldron of white water and supersonic metal. Within 8 seconds, all 40 fast boats had reduced speed and altered course away from the carrier group. That demonstration transmitted several messages simultaneously. American defensive systems would engage without hesitation when threat parameters were met. The warning shot was precisely controlled, meaning real engagement would be devastatingly accurate. The technological gap allowed proportional response options Iran's systems couldn't match. Iranian commanders could only choose between not shooting at all or firing everything, while Americans could calibrate from warning shots through graduated response up to total annihilation. The escalation spiral accelerated immediately. At 0537 hours, fire control radars from both American cruisers achieved missile lock on all 4 Iranian frigates. In modern naval warfare, this represents the terminal phase before actual weapon launch. Iranian electronic warfare suites detected the lock immediately, and every captain understood the implications. They'd entered the kill chain. Their own anti-radiation missiles needed sustained radar tracking for targeting, which would expose them to American anti-radiation missiles. The technological mathematics offered 0 favorable outcomes. The intelligence picture Tehran was receiving painted catastrophic reality. Iranian commanders reported that American jamming had degraded their radar systems to marginal functionality. They had 0 submarine detection capability. Airborne threats they couldn't adequately track were circling overhead. The technological superiority wasn't marginal advantage. It was overwhelming dominance across every domain simultaneously. Russian military advisors embedded with Iranian forces were transmitting urgent recommendations for immediate de-escalation after their satellite reconnaissance confirmed the full American composition. The strategic calculus was brutal. Iran's entire 2024 defense budget stood at $24.6 billion total, while a single American carrier strike group represented over $35 billion in assets. Senior IRGC officers were presenting worst-case analysis, estimating their entire blockading force could be neutralized in under 12 minutes if hostilities commenced. 12 minutes from first missile launch to complete destruction of 4 frigates and 40 boats. That's mathematical certainty based on known weapons performance and demonstrated technological capability. The gap wasn't something training or courage could overcome. The face-saving withdrawal emerged from this impossible tactical situation. The Iranian commander aboard the Sahand transmitted on International Channel 16 that patrol operations had successfully verified freedom of navigation, and the formation would now return to port after demonstrating Iranian maritime sovereignty. The phrasing was carefully constructed to allow both sides to claim success without either surrendering position completely. Iranian state media broadcast footage claiming successful challenge to American aggression. American official statements noted only that foreign vessels cleared the transit corridor without incident. Both narratives served domestic political requirements while avoiding the catastrophic confrontation that had approached within seconds of realization. The intelligence intercepts revealed the impossible position Iranian commanders faced. They'd been threatened with court-martial if they withdrew without achieving mission objectives, yet faced the same fate if their ships were damaged. Professional naval officers prevented politicians from starting a fight that would have lasted approximately 12 minutes before Iran's surface fleet ceased to exist as functional force. The USS Abraham Lincoln continued transit through the Strait of Hormuz without firing weapons beyond the warning burst, demonstrating that overwhelming technological superiority achieves strategic objectives without necessarily employing full destructive potential. The incident validated American operational procedures for defending high-value assets in constrained waters against swarm attacks, while exposing fundamental limitations in Iranian asymmetric warfare doctrine. The geopolitical ramifications cascaded across regional security architecture immediately. Gulf Cooperation Council states monitoring this confrontation absorbed brutal lessons about practical limits of challenging American naval presence through conventional force. Israelis' military planners incorporated every detail about Iranian naval capabilities and American responses into contingency preparations for potential regional conflicts. Russia and China conducted extensive analysis of American integrated warfare system effectiveness, while accelerating programs to develop counters to Aegis-type capabilities. Both nations noted that numerical advantage and home water knowledge proved insufficient against networked warfare systems designed specifically to defeat swarm tactics. For Iran specifically, the confrontation exposed strategic vulnerabilities that revolutionary rhetoric couldn't overcome. Tehran's regional influence depends partly on credible capability to threaten American interests and close the Strait of Hormuz if conflict erupts. This incident proved such threats carry costs potentially exceeding achievable gains. The Strait of Hormuz standoff ultimately reinforced existing power dynamics rather than challenging them. Iran demonstrated willingness to confront American naval presence but couldn't overcome the technological disparity that defined modern naval warfare. The United States validated defensive systems and operational procedures while avoiding escalation that would have triggered broader regional crisis. The mathematics of modern naval confrontation don't care about courage, revolutionary zeal, or national pride. They care about sensor range, weapons performance, network integration, and real-time data processing. In every measurable dimension, American systems outperformed Iranian capabilities by margins that made tactical outcomes essentially predetermined. The only question was whether professional officers could prevent political pressure from forcing engagement that would expose this disparity through actual combat. The incident proved they could, at least this time. The next confrontation will test whether that professional restraint survives under different political circumstances. The Strait of Hormuz guarantees there will be a next time. The only uncertainty is whether the outcome remains bloodless.